Hello everyone and welcome to the third Spring 2025 update from GavsWeatherVids. So here we go again, time to bring you more spring data, and this week we are doing a QBO, quasi-biennial oscillation special. So I should get some back for you very shortly. Just to say back first, video sales are 6 AM UK weather forecast. We've got the first Sunday roundup of the 2025 coming up for you around midday, 1ish this afternoon, and then at 6 PM we're going to be live with our 10 to 14 day and ensembles watch as well. So lots of content to come today. Please like, share and subscribe on all of today's videos and content. And thank you so much everyone for Dear Matt for Gavs or whatever. Thank you so much everyone. And thank you so much to Richard Ricardo. So much to Richard for our amazing spring updates gift. Next week we're going to name the bird. So get your thinking caps on, post in the comments what name you would like for our little bird here. And we shall be naming the bird next week on next Sunday's live stream. Thanks so much everyone for doing that. Thanks so to Richard, for the gift. Thanks so to Shrine Bruin as well for getting all the years together for us. Hashtag Team Gav doing an amazing job for us as always. Thank you so much to hashtag Team Gav. Okay, we're going to start off with this page. This is the monthly QBO numbers page from NOAA. So the quasi-biennial oscillation basically is telling us how strong the zona westerlies are. When we're in a westerly phase of QBO, we tend to have stronger zona westerlies. When we're in the easterly phase of the QBO, we tend to have weaker zona westerlies. It's primarily a winter driver, but we do look at it all year round. So we're currently, hold on. So, sorry everyone, we're currently in the westerly phase of the QBO and have been since last summer. So 2024 begins with quite a strong easterly QBO. See these very negative numbers just here. They start reversing when we go through the spring of 2024, and by the time we get through to the beginning of the summer, that's when we flip the QBO from its easterly to its westerly phase. Since then, I've been seeing a general sort of strengthening of the westerly QBO, although December's QBO number came in at 12.70, which is actually a little bit lower than November. That came in at 13.78. So the westerly phase of the QBO is more or less at its peak, possibly has peaked now. Well, 2025 numbers are going to be placed just here. I think even if we have peak westerly QBO, we will continue with those positive numbers through January, February, probably into March and April as well. But I would expect that as time goes along, they get less and less positive. And by the time we get through into the summer, that is when I would expect that the next easterly phase of the QBO might start to descend. This is from NASA, so with this you have to think that these are the levels of the atmosphere just here. We've got the top of the atmosphere in the stratosphere at 10 HPA, and then we've got the boundary level of the atmosphere that we call the troposphere. That's between 30 and 50 HPA. And so this is the current westerly phase of the QBO, but we see here, it descended, as I say, from the strat into the troposphere around the end of the spring into the beginning of the summer last year. This is the next easterly QBO phase, lurking up in the stratosphere, not yet penetrating down into the troposphere. So the westerly QBO probably has a couple, 2 or 3 more months left to go before we see the QBO moving from the strat into the trop. And so that means that spring 2025 is likely to be a waning or weakening westerly QBO spring. And so that is what we're going to be looking for with our analogues for this third spring 2025 update. Thank you, as I say, to Shrine Bruin for sorting out all of these years for us. So the first year with a waning westerly phase of QBO is 1958, with blocking through the spring of 1958 around Greenland and Iceland, and a trough of low pressure underneath it. That at least was bringing in the wind from a northeasterly direction. So quite a cold spring, especially the early part during March. I think 1958 was really quite cold and wintry. I think it got a little bit milder later on, but a very unsettled and quite chilly or cold spring in 1958. Next up, we've got 1962. Now, this is a very cold March. This was the coldest March, I think, of the 20th century. And the rest of the spring was quite cold as well. 1962 was a cold year, of course. So we see a blocking signal around Greenland and Iceland. We see a trough of low pressure digging southwards. So very cold and wintry in March of 1962, and then the rest of the spring wasn't as cold as wintry about as it is a warming season, but nevertheless, it was a pretty chilly spring throughout, I think, and often rather unsettled as well. Our next westerly QBO Spring in the waning or weakening phase is 1964, with high pressure up towards Scandinavia, low pressure to our south and east. Winds generally coming in from an easterly direction during that spring. So that's probably a warmer spring, especially so later on in the last part of 1964. I'd imagine that's a bit warmer. Still a bit mixed though, and not as dismal as 1958, 1962, but probably not much to get all that excited about. Next up, we've got 1967, with plenty of low pressure in from the Atlantic into West Europe, high pressure out in the centre of the Atlantic, jet stream wind flow, doing something a little bit like that. That's a rather mild and unsettled spring in 1967 there. We have a long gap then. Our next waning westerly QBO phase is 1981 in the spring, with low pressure in from the Atlantic and a bit of a blocking signal up to the north. This is a very unsettled spring. It has a very wet March, not particularly cold. And then it has a cold April, especially so late in April, where we have an unusual late April snowstorm in the last week of the month. There are 2 Aprils, only 2, in the 20th century that have late April. By late, we're talking about the last week of the month. Late April snowstorms. One of those Aprils is 1908, and the other one is 1981. And then I think of 1981 is a bit unsettled, but nowhere near as cold. So overall, an unsettled, really quite wet spring, and of course has about a very unusual snowstorm in April, late April of 1981. Next waning, weakening westerly QBO Spring is 1986. This one is a very unsettled spring as well. Real winds looking a bit dismal, aren't they? No, this is a very unsettled spring as well. And quite a cold spring. It follows a cold winter, of course, for 85, 86, especially February 1986 was a very, very cold month with a sub-zero CT. That does carry on to some degree into the spring, but the spring I think is a lot wetter, a lot more unsettled, as well as being fairly chilly in 1986. We've got 1988 showing up next with low pressure to our south and east, higher pressure away to the north and the west. Could we be bringing the wind from the northeasterly direction with that one? Possibly. That does have a cold snap, I think, in April of 1988, following a very mild winter. 2000 is our next waning westerly QBO spring. This with low pressure to the south, high pressure blocking away in the North Atlantic. This has quite a cold March and April, very wet April as well in 2000. There is wintry conditions in both March and April of 2000, not continuously so, not exceptionally so, but they're both quite cold and at times quite wintry months as well. And then May is a lot warmer, but still quite unsettled, I think, in 2000. So overall, a very mixed spring and very wet April. Quite a big gap then to 2009. This is a warmer spring. This is perhaps our first proper warmer spring with higher pressure towards Scandinavia and to our south. Low pressure is away to the north and to the northwest. So that does have quite a lot of dry and often quite mild weather, if not all that warm, during the spring of 2009. That's a rather better spring. And this one is a nice spring. This is 2014. This is the best of the package, I think, today, with high pressure above average heights again, generally over to the east of country, low pressure, and the jet stream away to the north and to the northwest. So, sorry once more, everyone. That's bringing up the wind generally from quite a southerly sort of direction, so quite a dry and warm signal for the spring of 2014. I haven't zoomed in on that one. Hold on, everybody. Let's just quickly zoom in. There we go. Next up, we've got spring of 2017. This is another dry and warm spring. This might actually be a bit better than 2014, to be honest. There's probably not much to choose between them, but I think, again, that has a lot of dry, mild, often quite warm weather through the west of Europe during the spring of 2014. Then we got spring 2021. This is a very cold spring with low pressure to the east, high pressure blocking away to the northwest, and winds often coming in from a north or northeasterly direction. Not particularly cold in March. March 2021, relatively mild, but April and May 2021, well, April is the coldest since 1986, and May is the coldest since 1996. So putting both of those months together, it really is, an appreciably cold season, perhaps one of the coldest seasons to average that we've had so far this century. And then finally, we've got spring of 2023. This has quite a lot of dry weather and isn't too bad, though it does have a potent early cold snap in March. I remember that quite well, some early March snowfalls. Otherwise, a bit of a mixed bag in the spring of 2023, and I think often a bit on the unsettled side. Right, let's put all of that together then. So this is how all Marches combined are looking when we are in the waning or weakening westerly QBO phase. So we find a very strong low pressure signal in off the Atlantic into the north and west Europe, a bit of blocking around Greenland as well. So unsettled, wet, and really quite miserable signal for those March. Of course, there will be years that are deviating and doing things differently. I don't think March 2009, for example, was too bad, nor was March 2014 or 2017. Now, the more recent years perhaps do break away from that a little bit, but nevertheless, overall, a wet signal for the Marches. April not as unsettled, but perhaps a rather colder signal, if anything, with higher pressure in the North Atlantic and away to our north and west. Low pressure tends to be moved more to the south, and winds could be coming in from more of a northerly direction in these April. So your page money takes choice. March is an overly cold signal, but is very unsettled. April is a drier signal, not as unsettled, but it could be somewhat colder. Although bear in mind it's a warming time of the year, so we're talking about it's all in context. We're talking about cold for April. It wouldn't be cold like the middle of January. And then all Mays combined are back to the low pressure signal again. Plenty of low pressure in the Atlantic into the west of Europe, so looking unsettled on average for those Mays. And then finally, this is how all springs combined are looking, where we're in the waning or weakening westerly QBO phase. And overall, it is an unsettled 4B springs with lots of low pressure in from the Atlantic into the west of Europe there. So an unsettled signal for the springs overall. Again, there could be years that deviate. 2017 was quite a dry and warm spring, for example. But when you put the package together, that's how you come out. Okay, that's it for the third spring 2025 update. Nice and short little update there. If you've enjoyed this update for spring 2025, please like, share, and subscribe. We're going to have more spring data for you next week. Thank you so much to Richard and Shryan for all of the help on the video. Shows to Richard for the gear. Thank you so much to Shryan for getting me years together. Hashtag Team Gav doing a wonderful job for us as ever. We're going to be back a little bit later on, early this afternoon, with the first Sunday roundup of 2025. So have a look at that a little bit later on. And then we should be live at 6 p.m. With a 10 to 14 there and Ensembles Watch. I'm not terribly well at the moment, to be honest, so just keep an eye on the socials. I think we'll be doing a live stream, but if anything changes, of course, I shall let everybody know. Right, well, that's it for the third Spring 2025 update. For this one, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.